But I want to start with something you said, which I think is frankly disgusting and is more appropriate for a Democratic propagandist than it is for an American journalist. I agree you don't want to talk about policy,
No,
Dana,
what
which
I
is
want
why
to
you're
talk
talking
about,
about
what
other
I want to talk
distractions
about,
instead of about the fact
Senator,
that Kamala
it was
Harris,
your
Dana,
distraction.
granted amnesty
You were the
at
one
a
who
mass
started
level.
talking
She
about
granted
eating
amnesty
dogs
at a
and
mass
cats.
level. Doesn't that mean you should shut up about the residents of Springfield? Don't you realize you're engaged in basic propaganda? Dana, would you like to ask me questions and then let me answer them, or would you like to debate me on these topics? So please ask a question, and I'd ask you to be polite enough to let me answer it. There is nothing that I have said that has led to threats against these hospitals. These hospitals, the bomb threats and so forth, it's disgusting. The violence is disgusting. We condemn it. We condemn all violence.
Senator,
and
this
threats
happened
of
after
violence.
you and
But
President Trump were on the debate stage, said that cats and dogs were being eaten.
You asked a question, Dana, and I'm going to go ahead and answer it. What we have said is that this town has suffered terribly under the policies of Kamala Harris.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope all's good wherever you are. In this video, we have our boy J.D. Vance absolutely destroying Da Bash. This video is gold. Get your popcorn ready. Let's get it.
Now is Republican Vice Presidential nominee J.D. Vance, who represents Ohio in the U.S. Senate. Thank you for being here, sir. So the mayor of Springfield, Ohio, Rob Rue, said, quote, all these federal politicians that have negatively spun our city, they need to know they're hurting our city. And it was their words that did it. Before Donald Trump talked about eating dogs and cats on a debate stage, it was you, Senator, who first elevated this baseless rumor. These are your constituents. So why are you putting them at risk by continuing to spread claims about Haitian immigrants, despite officials in your state saying that there's no evidence and pleading for you to stop?
Well, Dana, first of all, what's putting the residents of Springfield at risk, which was a town completely ignored by the American media until Donald Trump and I started surfacing some of these concerns, is that they can't afford housing, they can't afford health care. The schools have been overwhelmed, the hospitals have been overwhelmed, and they're overwhelmed because Kamala Harris allowed 20,000 Haitian migrants to get dropped into a small Ohio town of about 40,000 people, and it's completely overwhelmed the services. Now, you ask, why have I talked about some of the things that I've been talking about? Let me just say this. My constituents have brought approximately a dozen separate concerns to me. 10 of them are verifiable and confirmable, and a couple of them I talk about because my constituents are telling me firsthand that they're seeing these things. So I have two options, Dana. I can ignore them, which is what the American media has done for years to this community, or I can actually talk about what people are telling me. And of course, many of the things that the media says are completely baseless have since been confirmed. For example, I was told, Dana, that by the American media that it was baseless that migrants were capturing the geese from the local park pond and eating them. And yet there are 911 calls from well before this ever became a viral sensation of people complaining about that exact thing happening. So my attitude is listen to my constituents. Sometimes they're going to say things that people don't like, but they're saying things that people don't like because their town has been overwhelmed, and it's my job to try to fight for them and to protect them. Kamala Harris opened the border, and now these people are suffering. That's what I'm focused on, Dana.
Senator, I have to go through several things that you just said. First of all, the Clark County Sheriff and the Ohio Department of Natural Resources reviewed 11 months of 911 calls. They only identified 2 instances of people alleging Haitians were taking geese out of parks. They found 0 evidence to substantiate those claims. Also, other evidence that you have talked about, even you've retweeted alleged evidence, are unsourced social media videos from a different city, apparently no connection to Haitians. And this is from a conservative activist who offered a $5,000 reward for such things. And then going just backly to the schools and the hospitals and so forth being overwhelmed, nobody is disputing that the town of Springfield, Ohio, needs help. But you're not just a bystander, you're the senator from Ohio. So instead of saying things that are wrong and actually causing the hospitals, the schools, the government buildings to be evacuated because of bomb threats, because of the cats and dogs thing, why not actually be constructive in helping to better integrate them into the community? Because there are a lot of employers there who say that the Haitian workers are helping fill jobs that they need desperately filled.
Before we get to all of the good stuff, there's no problem with Springfield, Ohio, none whatsoever, but yet Governor Mike DeWine is sending troopers and $2.5 million to Springfield because the city faces a surge in Haitian migrants. Now, I'm going to show you some testimonial video of the citizens of Springfield. The migrants are out there flipping cars over, peeing on the street, crashing on people's front lawn. And what she said, that they're helping with the jobs. This freaking idea that migrants are good for the economy when it comes to jobs, all that does when you have illegals. Now, some of these people are there from amnesty, and it's not technically illegal. I get that. But when you have people, migrants, coming in illegally to a country, what that does is it takes jobs away from low-skilled Americans. It doesn't benefit anybody. A lot of the employers, they won't pay minimum wage to an American citizen for a low-skilled job when they can just pay an illegal migrant. Pennies on the dollar. And another thing about most non-American born immigrants, the high percentage of them, and almost all migrants, there's UCL studies on this, the money that they receive in benefits through their lifetime of being in America will greatly outweigh what they will ever contribute in taxes. Think about that. Let's get back to the video.
Dana, first of all, let me just respond to a couple things that you said. Now, you just accused me of inciting violence against the community when all that I've done is surface the complaints of my constituents, people who are suffering because of Kamala Harris's policies. Are we not allowed to talk about these problems because some psychopaths are threatening violence? We can condemn the violence on the one hand, but also talk about the terrible consequences of Kamala Harris's open border on the other hand. Now, let me just fact check a couple of other things that you said, Dana, because it's important. You said that all of these migrants are in the country legally. They are in the country through what's called temporary protective status.
Right.
That is when Kamala Harris waved a magic amnesty wand, taking people and giving them legal status. That is not to say that they're here legally. That is a terrible indictment of her amnesty policies that have further opened the border and further caused terrible migration into this country.
You might not agree with the policy, and obviously you don't, which is totally fair and legitimate. There are policy disagreements all the time. But the fact is, it is the law because President Biden and Vice President Harris are. But I don't want to frankly go down this conversation about policy
Dana,
because
you made a point. You don't. I agree. You don't want to talk about policy.
No,
Dana,
what I
want to
talk about
instead of about the fact
Senator,
that
it was
Harris,
your
Dana,
distraction.
Granted amnesty.
You were the one who started
level.
talking about eating dogs and cats.
Level.
You were the one who brought this
my
up.
Constituents
the president
were the
said
ones
it to
who talked about
60
eating
million
dog and
people.
cats, and I talked about it because you were ignoring this community. My constituents talked about it.
Have you been
to Springfield? It is my responsibility to surface their concerns when the American media
Have you been
ignores
to Springfield?
Dana, I've been to Springfield probably 100 times in my life.
How about
I've taken my children to get ice cream at Young's Jersey Dairy.
Have you heard recently since you've gotten these calls?
Have I been in the last 4 days?
No,
I
I'm
haven't
talking
been
about
in the last 4 days, but I've
since
talked
you've
to a lot
gotten
of
these
people
calls
in
from the
Springfield, Dana,
constituents.
and they're telling me this stuff is happening. Dana, would you like to ask me questions and then let me answer them, or would you like to debate me on these topics? I noticed that when you had Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, you gave them multiple choice answers to the questions that you asked, and you allowed them to answer the questions. I'm happy to be here to talk about policy, but if you're going to interrupt me every single time that I open my mouth, then why am I even doing this? So please ask a question, and I'd ask you to be polite enough to let me answer it.
Yes, I am, and I think that if Kamala Harris and Tim Walz were making unsubstantiated claims that had racist undertones about people eating dogs and cats, and they didn't answer the questions about that, then I would have similar interactions with them. As you know, I am very grateful that you come on the show, as I am for other Republicans. But this is something that you're hearing from constituents. I did a lot of reporting. I talked to people in Ohio over the weekend, and they're really worried about these claims. The policies, yes, I am agreeing with you that what I heard is that there is concern that these migrants. There's a lot of them, and the integration isn't being done fast enough and well enough. And that's a totally legitimate conversation.
Obviously, she knows that there's problems in Springfield, Ohio. Well, I'm giving her too much credit, maybe. I would think that she knows that there's problems in Springfield, Ohio, but she's there to push a narrative. This is done by design. There's even been articles out there, I read one by The Atlantic, that said that the migrants eating pet might actually be a good thing. They're trying to normalize all this. This is why this is done. Again, this is all done by design. Let's listen here to one of the citizens of Springfield, Ohio's testimony about the migrants.
I think it's like kind of odd that like a guy like me has to come out from doing what I do on a daily basis to have fun, because I see what's going on in these streets, and I see you guys just sitting up there in them comfy chairs and suits, and I'm getting out here every day and I'm broadcasting this, and you guys are just sitting up there in suits or something. Like, I really challenge you guys to get out here and do something. These Haitians are running into trash cans. They're running into buildings. They're running into, they flipping cars in the middle of the street. And I don't know how, like, y'all can be comfortable with this. Like, I don't know, like, who's getting paid from it. I honestly feel like someone's getting paid from it in the background. You got a bunch of people on a bus getting dropped off at a gas station to come down here. I know a single mom that FaceTimed me this morning at the welfare office that really need something. And it's nothing but immigrants over there. And I don't even want to seem like I'm coming down on the immigrants, because it's the people that's bringing them down here. Because wherever they're at, that's what they're used to, bro. They're in the park grabbing up ducks by their neck and cutting their head off and walking off with them and eating them. Like, y'all get the Highway State Patrol down here every week, and then y'all get like a task force for the Highway State Patrol, and they look for guns and they look for dope and this and that and the fourth. That same people that y'all got riding up and down Limestone doing U-turns, pulling people over for blinkers and pulling people over for going left to center and a couple miles over, y'all can take them same people, the Highway State Patrol, and you can take them in every single one of their silver Chargers and Dodge Durangos, and y'all can take them to Sunset, and y'all can park them right over there, and y'all can teach people how to drive, since the Highway State Patrol knows so much about traffic laws and know what to do in traffic. Y'all pay them, they can go over there and teach these Haitians how to drive, because it's getting I'm getting thousands of views on these, and it's going to get bigger, and it's only going to get worse. And y'all sitting up there in these chairs, all y'all need to get out here and do something. Y'all making hundreds of thousands of dollars. Y'all need to put on a T-shirt and some Crocs, and then y'all need to come out here in these streets, and y'all need to go out here and I'm out here before the police is. Y'all need to do something, bro. Y'all really got to stand on business. Y'all getting paid all this money just to wear a suit and sit in a chair. I think it's crazy, bro. We got to do something, bro. It's kids out here getting hurt. Only reason I even went on here and said something about it is because somebody told me they walking from the school and a Haitian almost ran into them. And who is getting paid? How much money is y'all really getting paid, to bring them over here? I know it's deeper than them. I know that's where they come from, and that's what they do. That's their country. I don't know what they got going on over there, but they can't do that over here. And if y'all just getting paid from it and then y'all ain't doing nothing about it, I think that's super weird, bro. Y'all got to stand on business. Y'all got to really, step up. It's lame, bro. For real.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
But there are other conversations that are happening. Aiden Clark, who is an 11-year-old boy who was killed in Springfield last year. It was a car accident involving a Haitian immigrant. You said that he was murdered. His father said that's not true. It was an accident. Here's what he said to you.
Politicians, Bernie Moreno, Chip Roy, J.D. Vance, and Donald Trump. They have spoken my son's name and used his death for political gain. This needs to stop now. They are not allowed, nor have they ever been allowed to mention Aiden Clark from Springfield, Ohio. I will listen to them one more time to hear their apologies.
Senator, he's asking for you to apologize. Will you?
Dana, first of all, my heart goes out to the Clark family, and I don't bring their son's name up because they've clearly expressed a preference for politicians to not bring their son's name up. I wish them all the best. I can't believe what kind of a tragedy they've experienced, but I'm still going to keep on talking about what the migrants have done to Springfield, Ohio, and what Kamala Harris's open border has done to Springfield, Ohio. And Dana, I think this illustrates the entire contrast between how we're trying to go about this debate and how a lot of the Democrats are trying to go about this debate. They're talking about 12 Proud Boys marching in Springfield, Ohio. They're talking about the frankly fake debunkings of a lot of these stories that are out there. I'm talking to my constituents and I'm hearing terrible things about what's going on in Springfield, and Kamala Harris's open border policies have caused these problems. The hospitals are overwhelmed, Dana. The schools are overwhelmed. The local services are completely overwhelmed. You have people who can't afford housing. Homelessness has gone up. Murders are up by 81% because of what Kamala Harris has allowed to happen to this small community. I'm going to keep on talking about that. Now, of course, we can criticize violence. We can also still talk about the problems that are happening in Springfield, and we should be able to do both those things simultaneously, Dana.
Just once and for all, you again started this in part by saying that, at which Donald Trump repeated on the debate stage, that, and he didn't say anything about the policies that you're talking about. He just said Haitians are eating dogs and cats. Can you affirmatively say now that that is a rumor that has no basis with evidence?
Dana, the evidence is the first-hand account of my constituents who are telling me that this happened. And by the way, I've been trying to talk about the problems in Springfield for months, and the American media ignored it. There was a congressional hearing just last week of angel moms who lost children because Kamala Harris let criminal migrants into this country who then murdered their children. The American media totally ignored this stuff until Donald Trump and I started talking about cat memes. If I have to,
but it wasn't just a meme,
create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do, Dana, because you guys are completely letting Kamala Harris coast. You had one interview with her. You talk about pushing back against me, Dana. You didn't push back against the fact that she cast the deciding vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which is why a lot of Americans can't afford food and housing.
You just said that you're creating a story.
Public policy.
Now I'm going to play you guys another testimonial here, but I'm someone who's certainly not against immigration. If anything, I am for legal, going through the proper channels immigration. However, we've reached a point now that has gone too far. There's been too much of amnesty seekers, of illegals, of actual immigration. There needs to be a cap on it. It has to stop because you cannot assimilate people that fast into a society, and we're seeing it now. Look at Europe's a great example of that. Look at Britain. What happened to them? It's happening here. This mass immigration didn't happen in like the 50s or 60s or 70s or 80s. Most of it happened in the 2000s, and the big numbers have happened in the last recent years. And the left will try to tell you that we've always been a nation of immigrants. Not like this. For most of the country's history, there's been a very homogeneous group of people in America for most of its history. I hate the argument about the jobs. I hate the argument about diversity. Oh, it makes us more diverse. Have you been to neighborhoods or inner cities where mostly migrants live? Those neighborhoods are not diverse. They're not diverse at all for the most part. And this idea, again, going back to the jobs, this idea that we need people for jobs because what, frankly, we're too lazy as Americans to do it, or we're too good for these jobs, that's incredibly racist in itself. The people that come illegally, they're not nurses and doctors and engineers as we know. And even if they were, you would want these people to stay in their own country so they can help underdeveloped countries or developing countries prosper. You want them to keep their doctors. You want them to keep their engineers and the people that could help build the country properly. There is no way, shape, or form that immigration at this level benefits us in any way. Now let me play you a little video testimonial of another citizen of Springfield. Sorry to rant on. Let's get it.
Miss Skinner, who I'm not trying to put on the spot, is my neighbor.
Just talk to me, ma'am. Thank you so much.
And I'm done with what I'm seeing. It is so unsafe in my neighborhood anymore. I have the homeless that were trying to camp out, and I have made concessions with them, and I try to help them the best I can to keep them from trying to squat on my property. But it is so unsafe. I have men that cannot speak English in my front yard screaming at me, throwing mattresses in my front yard, throwing trash in my front yard. And I can't. Look at me, I weigh 95 pounds. I couldn't defend myself if I had to. My husband is elderly, and last night, after living in this home for 45 years, he said, Noelle, guess what? It's time to pack up and move. He said, we can't do this anymore. He said, it's killing both of us mentally. I don't understand what you expect of us as citizens. I mean, I understand they're here under temporary protected status, and you're protecting them, and I understand that our city services are overwhelmed and understaffed. But who's protecting us? If we're protecting them, who's protecting me? I want out of this town. I am sorry. Please give me a reason to stay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir, you just said that you're creating the story.
What's that, Dana?
You just said that this is a story that you created. So the eating dogs and cats thing is not accurate.
Dana, it comes from firsthand accounts from my constituents. I say that we're creating a story, meaning we're creating the American media focusing on it. I didn't create 20,000 illegal migrants coming into Springfield thanks to Kamala Harris's policies. Her policies did that, but yes, we created the actual focus that allowed the American media to talk about this story and the suffering caused by Kamala Harris's policies.
Do you condemn the Proud Boys, even if it's just 12, even if it's just one marching in Springfield?
Dana, I condemn all white supremacists. I'm obviously not. I'm married to a non-white person. I don't like these people, but I think that we have to keep our focus not on 12 marchers going down the street, but on the fact that thousands of residents have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's policy. I find this very unusual, Dana, that the American media is more interested in a bunch of losers marching down the street than they are in the fact that Kamala Harris has made these people's lives worse. I'm not talking about 12 Proud Boys. I'm talking about 40,000 residents, 40,000 constituents of mine, many of whom can't afford housing and food because of Kamala Harris's open border. That is what I want to focus the media's attention on. We're going to keep on doing it because I think the American people deserve a government that puts their interests first. Can I make just one more final point about this, Dana?
Yes, please.
You've heard a lot of the media focusing on every possible distraction from the story in Springfield. You've heard them focus on these Proud Boys marches. You've heard just in this interview, Dana, the suggestion that because some psychopath is calling in a bomb threat, somehow we have to then ignore 40,000 Springfieldians who are having their lives worsened by Kamala Harris's policies. Well, what is the implication, Dana? I actually love to have this conversation right now live on air.
Right.
What is the implication when you say you calling out these problems has caused a bomb threat? You accused me of causing a bomb threat. Doesn't that mean you should shut up about the residents of Springfield? Don't you realize you're engaged in basic propaganda to silence the concerns of American citizens?
I was quoting the actual mayor of Springfield, Ohio, begging after the bomb threats, begging federal officials, to please stop putting negative attention on his city. And I'm not talking about the policies. I'm not talking about the very real challenges that Springfield has. I'm talking about baseless rumors about Haitians eating dogs and cats. And that, after that was said on a debate stage, that is when these bomb threats started. And that is a fact. Senator, I just want to move on. I have two other quick issues separate from this that I want to talk to you about.
Dana,
go ahead.
Again,
please go ahead.
I think this is actually an important conversation.
Okay.
Look, the Springfield mayor, he's dealing with a lot of terrible things. I certainly sympathize with the guy, and we're going to try to help him out. But he did not accuse me of inciting a bomb threat. He just didn't. And if we're going to take the firsthand accounts of people who are on the ground in Springfield, why don't you bring on some of the people on your program who say that the migrants are eating their pets? You're applying a double standard here. You're saying if one person accuses J.D. Vance, I'm going to take that person's word as the gospel truth,
you have somebody
even
whose
if you
name
misrepresent it. If you have another person who's saying they're eating the cats, you're going to completely ignore them, attack them, silence them, and harass them. That double standard is why that people don't trust the media and why we're not talking about public policy 51 days out from a presidential election.
Okay, if you have somebody you want to tell us about who has proof that somebody ate their cat, of course we want to hear that. We certainly have had no evidence that that is actually something that happened. And I just want to say, I have not accused you of anything. I am quoting the mayor who said, after these bomb threats, federal politicians are negatively spinning our city. They need to know they are hurting our city. It was their words that did it. Okay? I'm quoting him, and it seems to be a
Dana,
cause and effect.
Roll the tape. You just accused me of inciting a bomb threat. There's no evidence of this. I condemn violence and threats of violence. We should be able to do that and also still talk about what's going on in Springfield.
This was a great interview for JD. And again, Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, they're not going out there doing any interview. This guy's out there. He's on every show every day, it seems. Just this morning, I woke up and he was all over my feed. There's 3 or 4 long-form interviews with him in it, answering all the questions. That's what both parties should be doing. Both political parties should be out there doing long-form interview, whether that be podcasts or media. It should be media, and it should be both sides of the media, like JD is doing here. But bringing it back to the illegal migrants who are destroying this town of Springfield. Get them out of there. They came illegally, a lot of them, not all of them. Again, some of them came through amnesty, whether we want to be happy about that or not. They're quote-unquote legally there. But the citizens of that city, it's okay for them to say they don't want them there. Let's pick a country here. Let's use, I don't know, Denmark. Let's say Denmark. We all decide to go to Denmark. And we go in there, and we go in there illegally, and we start to undermine everything that the Danish people and the Danish government do. We bring nothing to the country. We're not working. We're just taking benefits, peeing everywhere, flipping cars. Why should we be there? What benefit would we be bringing? A lot of these people come in large numbers. They come illegally, and they hate our way of life. They hate our way of living. They hate Western culture. And they have betrayed at this point all our attempts at hospitality. They spit in our faces with stuff like this. And don't try to turn this into, if you're a liberal listening to this, I don't mean because of the color of their skin, because of how they're acting as illegal. Not all immigrants are created equal. If there were white immigrants doing this, I would say the same exact thing. But a lot of immigrants come in to America from the Ukraine, Italy, other European countries, and we don't see gangs of Ukrainians on the street stabbing each other and flipping cars. I'm sorry, that is just not happening. There's going to be a point where the citizens, metaphorically, not trying to incite anything, but metaphorically, are going to have to stand up. Because those are going to be your options, right? There will come a point when this gets so bad that the option will be either to stand up, and the other option is to beg on your knees. Which one would you all prefer? Hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, smash that thumbs up button. Consider subscribing to the channel. Help it grow. Catch you all in the next video. Peace out, everybody.